So some of the situation, think about it, right? Let's say your manager comes to you and says, let's go into a website. Insurance domain, okay, that's fine. Let's go into auto. And I try to use auto as much as possible so that way you guys can pick other, line of business. So now your manager comes here and says, hey, this is our main homepage for the auto insurance. What I need you to do is test for broken links, right? So now how many link there is? What is, okay, let's talk about your approach, right? And I'm gonna ask you guys this question and come up with maybe a possible. So think like a programmer when you answer this kind of questions. So now you have links everywhere, right? Links. We're talking about, if you just hover over it, you got a whole bunch of links, right? So I'm looking at a couple hundreds links, right? So what would be one of your approach? And again, it doesn't have to be right because, I want to know your thought process before we can even think about, resolving this issue, right? Now, let's go with Evelina first, and then we will one by one trying to understand your thought process, and then I'll tell you how many possible way we can actually face this in real world. And this is a real world test case. Not all the manager will ask you, but then if you're working for a company like this one, you see, it probably is very valuable for them to say, okay, each page that you go first, you make sure all the links working, and then you proceed. So let's see who wants to do their first, idea. And again, like I said, it does not have to be right. You give me an idea and I'll tell you later if this idea was maybe doable with, again, keep in mind Selenium and Java you'll be using.
You can use like the Selenium WebDriver and like collect all the HTTP links from there, and you could run it that way.
But how, okay, so since you already mentioned this, I'm gonna ask you a little bit more details. One is that how will you collect all the links? Are you gonna do one at a time because you know the link text? Are you gonna use link text? That's one question. The second question is, if you do happen to find the link, HTTP link, then how are you validating if the link works?
When you get I know there's definitely an easier way of doing it, but I'm just thinking of collecting the links individually and then basically running them and trying to see if they come back to the actual page.
But give me like give me like a prototype answer, right? Like in theory, like even if you think it's possible, right? At least give me something like that so I can kind of give you a bit more information. So first, okay, let's run through this, right? First, you will collect all of the links. In order for you to collect all of the links, what is your process of that, right? Do you tell Selenium, hey, go get me all links, or go ahead and get me, link one at a time? Like, for example, about community is a link, testimonial is a link, trusted partner is a link, write a review, and gallery is a link. So get me all of these, and then you just go one by one until you get all of your links that you're interested in.
That's how I'm thinking of how I'm understanding that it would be done.
Okay. So that's one. Okay, that's fine. But what happens if, let's say, developer, they decided to change some of the names? Like, let's say, all of a sudden, 20 links, they decided to change, uppercase to lowercase, starting with, right? It's a lot of work, don't you think? For you to go and update your test cases.
Right.
The other thing that will happen is that, what if they added extra links? What if they remove some links, right? So that's where the issue comes in, right? How can we be more and more dynamic, right? So obviously we'll talk about our solution, but now Anybody else who wants to at least put some thoughts to this before we go ahead and start to resolve this, test case?
Google is saying that there's a method called find element by link text,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and it's saying that that might be basically of help
Mm-hmm.
for like locations of like links that are broken, basically, or there's like a partial link or something like that.
Mm-hmm. So what if I tell you, what if you know that every single link has one thing in common, right? So if you know that you can classify um all the humans in the same room, for example, right? You are able to classify them as, let's say, they're all maybe let's say Argentina, right? They love Argentina, right? Now we can offer them something, right? But if you know it could be, sorry guys, I don't know, what is it? Let's meet because I can hear myself. Now, let's say you have mix of friends rather than just one group of friends, but how do you differentiate your friends? So let's say you're in a bar, you went to the bar and you want to offer different products to different kind of customer that you see, and you see like group of people with Argentina, jersey, and then group of people with Brazil, and you get the picture, right? So now for each country, you are just offering a flag you're trying to sell. Now, if you approach one person at a time and you give them, let's say we go to uh, a a fan who loves Argentina and you give them Brazilian flag, obviously it's a reject. He'll say no, and also he'll probably take offense to your offering. So, what is the common item here for you to determine which group and what they would like, right? So one would be jersey in this case, right? Jersey is gonna be your identifier to make that decision what kind of product you will be offering. In our case, because we're dealing with all these links and we're talking about every possible links in this page, we have to find a common identifier to say what is the difference between link versus this web element, which is a image. What is the difference between this link web element versus this text field, right? So let's look into a little bit deeper into the inspect, right? Again, this is going to be your best friend anytime you're automating something, right? So now we're going to use this selector and we're going to start to look and see what is one thing that all the link has in common. Okay, and you guys will tell me. And I'm just going to go over and hover over the list links. So let me just go ahead and try. So this is resources link. Okay, can you guys see?
Yes.
Now I'm
Yeah.
gonna go into the next link and tell me, what do they have in common? And I'm going over the links. What do you think they have in common?
The A or
The A, right, which is a tag, which is an HTML tag. So A happened to be the indicator to say all of these are links, correct?
yeah.
Okay. So if that is the case, then you can tell your Selenium, go and find me all the A's and then get me href. Href is the link of the link, right? Basically, it's the full length link. How does that make sense, right? So now, not only that you're writing a code that will save you a lot of time instead of like going one by one. So let's say 300, let's say 300 links here. One by one, you're trying to verify, and then you're adding to your test. It's going to take you a long time, and then you'll probably make some human errors, right? Because it's 300 links, you'll probably miss few. And think about that, right? Here, you don't have to think about losing a link or missing a link because you will definitely get it. It's program, right? It's basically Selenium is grabbing it for you. So there is no maybe and there is no gray area. It'll find it, it'll give it to you if it's there, period, right?
Is that what they mean by anchor? I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's like an anchor tag. So in the HTML portion, right? These tags, as you know, like we use XML, right? And XML has the opening and closing, and on the HTML, you'll see that very similar tag. This is the opening and this is the closing for this tag. Whatever is in between is actually an element, right? Whatever, and it can be other elements too. It's elements within an element, right? So they have hierarchies as well. So one element contains another one, and then another element contains another one. So one way for you to find the locator, and obviously at some point you will get that knowledge or skill set to be able to just look into the HTML and create your own locator. So in this case, because we're just grabbing all the links, right? We can just go ahead and say A, because that is what it is, right? So if I go ahead and click on any of the text field and you see this is input. So if the front end developer, somebody who actually developed this application on the front end side, if he was following the right process and procedure, he will properly tag each element. So if he says input and this is a text field, then he did the right thing. He actually tagged properly. So sometime you'll see text field, it shows the text field, but when you come here and it says button, it is improper, but it might be one way for that developer to implement whatever he was trying to implement. It's not, he didn't do it in purpose, right? And you shouldn't reach out to him and say you did it wrong. It's just that that's the way it worked for him, and this is what he implemented. So keep in mind, it's not written in stone that it will be exactly properly labeled in terms of HTML tag. They may just use different tags for elements that doesn't even fall under that kind of category. So just keep in mind. But in our case, whatever tag we see here, that's all we need to see. It doesn't matter if this is a button, we're going to treat it as input at this point. And we're going to go ahead and click on it the way that we would click on a input box. So if we go ahead and look into this one right here, you see the button, it was properly, again, tagged. Now, if this was something that you want to click in, sure, it's a button. You can just say, I want to click on a button that has ID, which is this, right? It's very easy. Now, if they go ahead and remove this and they can simply say it's a tag, right? And then I can go ahead and find the end of the button somewhere. Let's see. Where is the ending of this? Okay, it automatically changed it. So you see, notice like I changed that to a tag and it became, at least for us, it became a link. But it's still working same as before, right? So what I want to basically tell you guys is that keep your mind open and deal with an element based on what you see here, not here, right? This is looks and feel, they can alter it through CSS. So this look and feel and the color and all of that was altered by CSS. So even though we converted that into a link, it does look like a button, okay? But we don't care, right? As long as this works and it meets the requirement, we don't care their implementation, whether that is a button or link. We only care how we are going to be able to access it and click on it, right? Or we want to do some sort of interaction. So now you can use this tag if you need to in order to make that kind of click, okay? All right, so with that said, let's go ahead and collect first all of the links, right? So now today I'm going to teach you guys one thing, and that one thing will be being able to use something called web elements, and we have been using web element, right? So find web element versus web elements is two different method, and each method does a very different thing. They also have different return, and this is also an interview question. Now, if you happen to deal with, obviously web elements is going to be something you'll use on a rare occasions, special needs, but web element is something you're going to probably use every single sentence that you write, syntax that you write. So first of all, we're going to create a TestNG class, right? So notice how TestNG class is, right? It doesn't need a main method as long as you are, you're applying the tag, right? If you don't apply the tag, that's when it will not run your test. So just keep in mind. So remember, we don't have to create a new driver. All we have to do is, call the driver just the way we called it here, right? So let's create a new TestNG class. It's going to be turning out to be a regular class looking. So, and I'm going to say verify all links, right? That's it, .java, something like that. And then we're going to go ahead and extend from the driver, because we need to be able to run it whichever driver we want. We can say public void, and then maybe we will say something like, okay, this is at test. And let's see, obviously we have to import the class. We'll do that. The test is, you can give enough description on the name itself. So when it generates a report automatically, it will actually tell your manager in one single sentence or line what you're trying to validate, right? So I'm going to write something with camel casing. So verify that all links on the, oh, what am I doing? Okay, on the home page working, right? So this is one thing that I'm that basically you'll be able to apply that at work as well. But this idea is going to give you I guess this idea is going to open doors for other possibilities when you are dealing with different situations and you want to validate something. So for example, you are looking into a table on a application. Now table has row and column. So how do you grab all of the rows from the table and then validate something, right? You're grabbing all of it. What is the common method that you have to look for, right? So just keep in mind, if you really pay attention, this will not only help you to do link tests, but it will also give you the idea to come up with solution for other situation. It could be table, it could be multiple elements, it could be like 10 different text fields that you're dealing with, whatever you want to do. So we also know that we have to do before and after. So in TestNG, again, before tests right there, no matter where you put it, it will still run before this block, okay? So I'm gonna say public void. And I'll just say setup. And again, it's the same way. And then I'm gonna say after test. And then I'll say same thing, public void. You guys, so far, any question? Crystal clear, my explanations, right?
Good.
Okay, good. So before, we're gonna basically create a driver. So I'm gonna keep the driver outside, right? Remember? So I'm gonna say web driver. What kind of variable this is, guys? You guys remember what kind of variable this is that I just created? It doesn't have a value. When you say variable, what is the variable means? It holds the value, right? Variable temporarily holds values, or even it holds value for you to use for later. It's just a container which occupies memory space, correct? Now, the problem is we haven't assigned any value to this variable. So what kind of variable this is? Anyone want to guess?
Reference.
Yeah, you can say reference, but it's called instance variable in Java. So reference variable, yes. If you say that, nobody's gonna say you said it wrong, but yes, it is instance variable. So all you're saying is when you create an instance variable, all you're saying is that later I will have a value for this, which is happening here, which is inside of a method versus outside. So you can always declare variable outside, which changes when a block of code runs, which might be inside of another function or method. Okay. So now with the D, let's see, driver D dot is equal to new driver. This should be is in here. Actually, drivers. Oh, never mind. Okay. This and then driver is equal to d dot browser or something, right? So whatever browser we like, I mean, Chrome, Firefox, whatever you want at this point, and it will run it, okay? So now that we have this, and I can probably do some sort of console output to make my test looks good. And this is for me and my team, meaning like whenever you have console output, it's probably more for the test engineers to use and understand exactly what's happening. And so for example, I'm gonna say creating driver. All right. And then if this happened to start, then I could say running test, right? So something like that. And you don't have to do it for all. You can actually say you can actually apply dynamically to say all before running all at test tag, say this, right? So it'll say, right? So we'll actually look into that as well. But for now, our class is completed. And now we can say something, right? So first thing first, okay, let's write a pseudocode. How many people know what pseudocode is?
Fake code?
Kind of, right? So let's see. The spelling is kind of throws me away to pseudo code, right? So let's look at that. Wikipedia, right? Pseudocode is like, in a simplest way, if you want to put it, it's like a prototype. It doesn't work, but you're just writing all the logics, what you'll do next, and so on, right? So pseudocode is understood by programmer of all types. It doesn't have to be C++, it doesn't have to be Java, it doesn't have to be Ruby, it doesn't have to be Python, .NET, all of the languages that are out there, but anybody will understand your pseudocode because it's not really language specific. It's more about your idea, and you're writing more in plain English to express it. So many times you're gonna find yourself in an interview where the interviewer will say, hey, look, I don't care how the code is, I don't care if the code runs or not, just give me a pseudocode. So at that point, what you should do, just give him an idea, right? And rather than saying, okay, Selenium, driver dot this, no, just tell me what will you do in like a story mode rather than, telling me I'm gonna, browser dot this, browser dot that, all of that stuff. So hopefully this clarify a little bit. So the first thing first we're gonna do is collect all the links, right? And now if I collect all the links, I have to temporarily store somewhere, right? So think about it and let me know what can we use. So before that, I have to open the browser and go to the page, that specific page, and make sure that I'm on the right page. Once we collected the link, store all the links, right? And get link text and href for each, right? So remember, link text is basically just the name of the link, and then href is the full length URL. You got those, right? So far, so good. Number 4, once you get that link, and now you have a link text and you have the href. So the idea is that if one of the link doesn't work, you can use the link text to say, okay, this link didn't work, and you can give them more description. And you don't have to say this whole URL didn't work. So this is like URL, right? The href now. So you don't have to say URL didn't work. You can say the link name as well, because it'll be associated with a href. Now, because you already stored them, you can actually go through each one of them at a time. If you do go through each one of them at a time, what is one of the Java part of Java, let's say, that we use in order to go through each item at a time? Which loop do you guys think is something that we can use? Which loop of your choice that you'll be using, let's say? Anybody? Okay. Um, you have a bunch of loops, right? All of them is gonna work. Let's just get it out of the way, right? But I'm just saying which one you're gonna be using. You can use while loop, whatever. The answer was all of, whichever you would tell me, I would say, okay, fine. At least you got that idea out there. Now, the next thing, once we are going through loop, now we can actually look into each link and the href at a time. In this case, in order for me to, see if it works, don't I have to visit the web page or something? Like, if I truly want to see if the link work, don't you think I should open the link and as long as it showed some sort of like, page, I think it's working. Don't you think I should do that? Or do you think I should just also just use the HTTP request, which is like send a request to the server and look for the server code, right? There is two ways to this answer. The most efficient and the fastest possible way to do it is like you send a request to the server and server comes back and say, hey, it's 200. 200 means it's okay, right? So anytime you go into a web page, an application, all this data that you're seeing, it's actually coming from a server via HTTP protocols, right? Those HTTP protocols, you can actually see them if you refresh, right? And you'll be able to see all of them right here. So you can see it's grabbing information for you. These are Java. Okay, let's go into a real, let's see. Okay, so load. So you see the data is coming from these requests, and let's go into the request real quick. And if you look at the request, was a post request and it's a status code 200. Status code 200 means your link worked. Okay, so we can actually send a request to the server directly. We don't even have to worry about this UI if we don't want to. But today, because I don't want to confuse anybody how to send server requests, I'm going to go ahead and do this UI testing, meaning for each of the link we're going to visit, we're going to validate something, we're going to come back and we're going to do the next link. How's that? Make sense? And then we'll do the server side at some point. That is called more like API kind of testing. And we're going to learn API testing as well, guys. So another topic waiting for us to tackle after learning UI automation. Now, okay, so that's that. So we're gonna go ahead and, so now that we have link text and href, we can visit each links and verify they work. And that's it. I mean, that's exactly what we want to do, correct? Does it sound like what we want to do? Guys? All right, so now that we have this, let's do the first one. Who wants to help me with the first one?
I'm sorry, what are you asking?
Yeah, I'm asking you guys to help me with this implementation, right? We had the pseudocode. We came up with the idea. Idea is already written. So some of you guys tell me what is the next thing that I need to do. So look, read this line, right? It says open the browser and go to a specific URL, right? So what possibly I can use in here?
Would you use like string URL?
Okay, that is to create a, let's say you're creating a base URL. So I can create it right here if I want to. And I can say string base URL is equal to something, right? And I'll go and grab that URL real quick. This is the one. We're just going, we don't even have to go to auto. We just go directly into domain itself because all the links should be visible there. Okay, so we got that base URL. What's next? And this
So
is something that we learned last class,
yeah,
right?
yeah, I remember this. It was like string URL equals to and like in the parentheses you would put that URL link so it would open up.
Okay, so give me the code now. Let's say, what do you want me to do here?
String URL.
Again, string URL. So
Uh,
didn't you already do that here? This is a declaration. You're saying my base URL is equal to this. This is what you have declared basically, right? So base URL, you're saying whenever I call base URL, give me this URL. So do you need to do it again here?
No.
Okay. How do you visit a URL through Selenium, guys? We did this last class, not once, but many times. Selenium ID also had the same, right? Again, guys, I need for you guys to look into your test, whatever you did, and then tell me. The thing is, interaction helps to also to let me know where we are lacking, and I can emphasize more on those, areas. But last class, when we wrote tests in test-ng, we wrote few, test cases and test automation. We also did 5 or 6, Selenium IDE automation. All of them had a method that Selenium provides to visit a URL. What is that method? So nobody remembers the method name. It's easy enough. That's why I'm kind of stretching, basically waiting for you guys to give me the answer.
Export.
Export is nothing to do with. So
Would it be like would it get current URL?
no, you're now looking into something else, right? So if you're visiting a URL, and we talked about it, right? We basically tell the driver, so this driver is created and we named it driver. We could have named whatever we want, right? Now we say driver, get, and it takes a string, right? And this happens to be a string that we created. And then we can say, get me this URL. So it'll go and visit that, right? So this method right here takes a string. How do I know that? How do I know that it takes a string? Right? All I have to do is when I do a dot and get, it tells me it takes a string and it returns nothing, right? Void means it returns nothing. It will do the job for you, but it will not come back and say, hey, I did it. It will do it for you. That's it. You guys understand?
Yes.
Okay. So now this method, learn it, put it in your mind right now, because you're gonna see this 1,000 times. Whenever you want to visit a URL, .get is the method that you'll use. Remember, whenever you're using, let's say, a library, right? So remember all these libraries that we added to our framework. And the reason why we add those libraries is because somebody already wrote the code for you. Now, those code, he or whoever, right? It could be a group of people. What they did is they gave name to a block of code. Each block of code does something special for you, for the user. Now, since it has a name for us to call, we can actually call it and it will do it for you. So just like that, get method came from Selenium because Selenium is just a bunch of code inside of the file and folder. You can see right here somewhere. We don't care about how it looks like it here. We only care about what it provides us to do, right? So now Selenium gives us, oh, you know what? I have a get method for you. Do you want to use it? And yeah, sure, I want to use it. Now, if you tell me, can you use pure Java right now and do the same thing? Yes, I can. I can use pure Java, just Java itself, to do the same thing, but it'll be a 3 or 4 page worth of code. Now I have to know what, where I am. Now I have to know what device I'm using and make all kind of determination before I can even use and open a URL, right? I need to know what browser I'm in and all of that stuff. So that 3 or 4 page of code is done. And somebody's saying, okay, go ahead and use this method. So again, whenever we use a library and we we put it into our framework is because we don't want to reinvent wheels that people already did. We just want to use them in our project in order to do something, right? We're not copying anything, right? This is how it works in open source world. So to keep that in mind. So now with that said, because you're using the method, it is entirely possible that you are lacking in programming, meaning you're lacking in Java or other programming knowledge, but you will be able to still run your 6, 7, 8, even 10 years of career as an automation engineer just by you being able to write automated tests, because it doesn't require extensive programming. Okay, and that's why, like, I don't want you guys to freak out and say, oh, I don't know anything about programming, and this seems like that, right? The reason why I have to like make sure that you guys learn the right things is because that's where obviously we have to go a little bit extra mile, right, to make sure that when you're dealing with real world problems, you don't really you don't really feel like, oh wow, I don't know programming, right? So that's why we have to teach you programming, but that shouldn't be a discouragement for you to stop learning. The other thing, you guys, recently I started using something called, and everybody probably knows that it's like TikTok going hard on this, the open AI that can actually write code for you, right? But think about it. You can literally write code and it can write code for you. You describe to the AI what kind of code you want. Can you use it at work? Yes, you can. Yes, you can. That's yours. Now, even if you get somebody to give you the code, the problem is going to be your understanding. It's nothing to do with you and being able to get the code. It's about the understanding, being able to read the code and then take the code and then put it into your framework into appropriate places. That's one of the reasons why you have to actually be knowledgeable about programming. But yes, it is possible for you to actually, do this career, without a lot of programming knowledge, but you have to get around and be able to know it. And that's why we are doing this. So just keep in mind, yes, we want to make sure that you learn the basic programming at least, so that way when you get your job, you have to be able to make it to the advanced side. And that is going to be your responsibility after getting the job, because sooner or later you'll see a fresh or somebody new coming to your team, and all of a sudden they're taking over, right? Now, somehow, whatever they say, they have amazing ideas because obviously they have programming mindset. And you don't want to be in that kind of situation. You don't want to feel like, oh, you're left out, or maybe you're having a conversation with a developer who's going to give you an idea. Oh, maybe I think you should do this, and you're going to say, oh, okay, this sounds so hard. Okay, and you ignore him and you just leave. So you will probably not going to advance yourself to that programming. But again, end of the day, when you're ready, when I say you're ready and you're out there, looking for jobs, it doesn't mean you are a guru in programming. It just means that you can read, write, and understand programming, but you still need a lot of work. And that's totally fine, because you will learn most of the skill set when you are at work, because now the pressure will come, and that pressure is going to, trust me, it's going to work. It's going to work better than even the class. So just keep in mind.
How long does it take to get comfortable?
What it takes.
Like
So
from the people who you got a job for, how
mhm.
long did they say that they got comfortable with the job?
So it takes like a couple of years, to be honest, to get really, really comfortable. And that is if you do that extra miles, right? You also put some time aside from work. But let's say you get an assignment, you're gonna dig down, you're gonna like struggle. Remember, we gave you guys homeworks, and some of you guys actually spend 2 days, 3 days. And that's gonna be the case for you in the very beginning, right? So don't shy away, because in the beginning you'll feel like, you've been doing 2 days, 3 days, 4 days for the same exact thing. But the best part, the good thing here is that you have unlimited time. There is nobody's coming behind you and saying, oh no, it's been 3 days, you got to do this. No, take your time. Take your time. You will be able to spend only 8 hours per day. Obviously, I wouldn't look at the time in the beginning, right? but you will be able to use only 8 hours and you can make most out of your days, right? You don't have to go more than 8 hours if you really use it well. And then after that 6 months, 6 months later, you'll realize your work is done within the first 3 hours. So what do you do with the rest of the time? You go to the meetings, you take it easy, learn something, whatever is the case in your situation. So just keep that in mind. All right, let's let's go back to coding, right? So we did kind of went off the track. So now that we went using, and then the reason why I went off the track is because like it's shocking to me that you guys don't know what get method, because we did that last class. Okay, now that we got the URL, so we assuming that it will go into this URL, right? So isn't it better for us to verify if we are in the right page before we even do anything, right? Where's the risk? What kind of risk that you're taking if you don't verify and you want to go right into the next line of code? Who can give me some hypothesis? Like I said, you can give me your guess, best possible guess, right? It's totally fine. So if you go ahead and visit this URL and then you decided to go into the next line of code without knowing exactly where you are, without verifying. So you visited the website and then you just go dive into collecting all these URLs, but you didn't even verify where you are. What's going to happen? Occasionally, obviously it's not going to happen all the time, but what is going to happen? 5 seconds, come on.
You might be testing maybe the wrong thing, or maybe you'll have, I guess, bugs come back. I don't know.
Yeah, it could be few numbers of things, right? What it could be is that you visited the URL, it went there and it didn't fully load, right? And that's one thing. The other thing is that maybe you went to this URL and it redirected you to another something, right? For some reason, maybe this is something that the developer didn't even realize. They pushed the code, and now anytime somebody visits this, it redirects to another website. So it could be that case, right? So this, and then this is one thing that we will do as the automation engineer. Anytime we want to do something, we will make sure where we are first in the page. So now, in order for me to verify I'm on the right page, I can say, driver, please get me the page title, right? So get title is going to give me the title. So now what is the return for get title? So let's see what kind of return that it gives me, because it has a return, correct? This guy didn't have a return, so it had a void. So what kind of return we're getting? It's right there, guys.
It's a string.
Right, it's right there, right? It's not a mystery, right? I'm not trying to quiz you. It's just that when you use this IDE, it helps you all the way, right? So now you can see the method, get title method gives you a string. What do you think, what kind of a string do you think it will give you? It will give you the title of the page. Now the title of the page belongs somewhere, and I don't expect you guys to know this. So we're gonna go look into it. So if you go into your elements and HTML elements, you go all the way in the top, and then you go inside of the head tag, you open it up, you see, you keep going down. So you see the head tag closes here. Within the head tag, you're gonna look for something called title tag, right? So this is the opening of the title tag, and this is the closing of the title tag. This is the real title of this page, not this, right? This is just a header. This is the header one. So keep that in mind. So I'm gonna go ahead and take this title, and now I know this title should be the one that we're looking, right? But this title actually belongs to the form, right? This specific page. So I'm gonna change that. Okay. What? Okay, let's go into this insurance. I hope they didn't change it because we are using their stuff. Okay. So now if you go in there, you can see the first time you visit this directly, you see this title. Okay. Notice like how title changes depending on which page you are. So I'm gonna go ahead and copy this title. So now this is my expected title, right? So I'm gonna say, I'm gonna create a string, I'm gonna leave it there. Expected title, right? So this is my expected title because I know this is what I should see, right? So whenever we do a test or verify something, don't we do expected versus actual? Right? Do we?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, so then what is this number 20 line? Is it actual or expected?
Expect.
You said expected.
I did, yes.
Why? Expected is like we just already wrote it. This is hard coded. It will never change, right? This is part of the code, right? We already said this is expected, but that's not the reason why this is not expected, right? We're telling driver to get it for us at the time of running, so it will get it at the runtime. So let's say the day you wrote your test, the title was this, but then a developer joined the team new and he messed up the whole application, and then you're running your test. The title still, expected title still remains the same, but then when you tell the driver to bring the get title, it will get the actual title of the page, right? So now it sees, oh, wait a minute, right? It gives you whatever it gets, right? So now if you compare this and this, you know what I'm saying? You would be able to detect the difference, right? So this becomes your actual title because you're grabbing it at the time of running your test. So I'm going to go ahead and write a string variable so we can actual title. Okay, it makes sense, right? Does it make sense? Because I'm trying to be as descriptive as I can be when I'm explaining this to you guys, right? Does it make sense? Because again, this is few things that should not need repeated, because we're gonna, in the future when we write tests, you should be able to use this on your test, right? Anybody wants me to explain again before we go into the next line of code? Okay, so all makes sense, right? Okay. Assert.
Yes, it makes sense. I'm sorry.
Okay, so now I'm gonna use assert. So like if you already use testng, it's probably better using testng. So I'm gonna say testng assert, and then I'm gonna say assert true. You know, maybe assert equal probably is better. So I'm gonna say assert equal. The first one is actual. That's what they want us to put in. And the second one is a expected, right? So what we're saying here is that we want to validate if this guy matches with this guy, but this guy is being grabbed from the WebDriver at the time of running the test. So if I wrote the test today, everything is fine, but then tomorrow somebody messed up the application and it started going to the wrong page, it will detect, right? Will it detect or will it not detect? It will, right? Okay, so the next thing, right? Next pseudocode, the next one is collecting all the links. So now let's see what possibly something that we can use for the next item on our pseudocode. The next item is basically we want to get elements, right? So I can say driver, okay? Go to, you know, wherever you are. So at this point, driver is already in the page, right? Because it visited the page, so it's already there. We validated. If this line passes, that means it went to this line, which is 25. So at 25, we already know, right, that we are on the right page. So I'm going to say driver. Find. Now I have two options. Which one we're going to use, guys? If I want all of it. And we talked about this, right? So we're going to use find elements. This is probably the only time you're using after, you know, all of the tests that we wrote. But this is not going to be the only time you'll be using, because this is something that you will use whenever you need it. Now, notice the difference between web element and web elements. The return type is, again, this is an interview question. Web elements gives you a list. Obviously, it makes sense, right? Because it has to be more than one. So it gives you a list. And then you have web element without the S, it gives you just a single element. So everything that you apply on all the action that you apply to find element will not apply to elements because it's more than just one item. So it doesn't know exactly where to apply, right? So keep that in mind. In this case, what I will do, I'll go ahead and use find elements. And then I'm going to say by, and I'm going to say tag name because that is the HTML tag. So I'm going to use tag name and I'm going to say find it by tag name double quotation A. And again, keep in mind that this is not a character. If this was a single quote, then it would be, but obviously it takes a string. So we have to pass a string. So far, so good. This is fine. What is the return type for this, guys? Remember, what will it return in this case? Anyone? So if you're getting a bunch of items by their classification, which is A, obviously you're getting more than one, right? And we talked about it already. So if I remove this dot find, it is the return type is a list. Okay. And why this is important for us to know the return type is a list is because now we have to put it into a variable so we can actually deal with it appropriately. Right? We're not going to just copy paste again and again and again, right? So now I'm going to actually create a variable with a list. So again, keep in mind in Java, the way that you create a list here, you can put string if you want to, but the return type is not a string. The return type is a element, web element. So I'm going to say web element. So list of web elements I need. And now I can give it a name. I can say all links, all right, is equal to this, right? So that was the name and I have to import the list so that way it works properly. So in this case, we have this variable that will go in there and give you all the web element that has a tag. Now, web element will have the link tags and all of that stuff that we can actually now use a loop. So let's go into this. We already stored it. We collected it, and we stored it under the link. So we go ahead and grab the link text and href. So actually these two will be together, right? So next thing we need to do is that we have to use a loop. So we might as well just use a while loop. What do you guys think? Okay, first thing first, let's do one thing, right? One is gonna be system.out. Let's print out and see what it looks like because we're just talking and we just might not know what's happening. So I can say total links found in the page. Right now I can say whatever I want to say. And I will go ahead and type something like, let's say, this is all of the links, right? I'm going to say dot, and I might just use size, right? Size will give me a integer value, right? But then we are putting with this specific string. So let's go ahead and run it real quick, and then we will continue from here. Okay, it failed immediately, so that might be the title. So it's a secure form solution or something. So somehow expected, notice like how well readable this is, right? So somehow secure form solution, it was the actual title, but then we expected this. So I just need to know if I'm doing the right thing myself, and then update the link. So if I was in this website, it does say this. So what could be the possible situation? It could be the URL problem, right? So I'm gonna go ahead and update that real quick. Where is the URL? Oh, look at this. So what we just did right now is that we just validated that our test works whenever things change. Okay, isn't it? Okay, so now we put the right URL. We're gonna run it. All right, so we did, nothing failed, and don't worry about this red stuff. This is just the different libraries that was not set up properly. For example, this library right there. So it's fine. At work, you might see some things like that, and they will tell you like ignore those. So just keep that in mind. It says total link found in the web page is 253. Okay, that's how many links that it was found. So now let's say first we want to print out here for us to see the link text. Okay, that's the first thing you wanna print out. You guys can still hear me, right?
Yes.
Okay, good. And hopefully you guys are listening because total silence. So basically up to this much, you guys crystal clear, right? Up to this much. Anywhere you need explanation before we go to the next one, because I'm going to ask you guys questions.
I missed it last Saturday, so I'm a little lost, but I'll be okay in the next
Yeah.
one.
Okay. This is basically even if you missed the last Saturday, this is going to be just more on the Java and the Selenium side. The class may look different because again we did test-ng class. It's just a different looks, but that's about it. But the code is going to remain the same. Okay, so now that we know how many links we accounted for, we want 253 tests to be run. So each should open and validate if they went to the page and all of that stuff. So what I can do probably, I can use a for loop, I can use a while loop, I can use whatever loop I want, right? In this case, I can also probably use let's see if let's do for loop for now, okay? And then for loop probably not a good choice. We can while loop is the good choice in this case, but for loop is something that I will use for now, and then we can change it back to while loop. It's not that difficult once we have the code written. And the reason I'm using for loop is because that's the first thing we learned when we did Java, so this will be pretty helpful. So INTI, all right? Again, in a for loop, if you guys still remember, the first section INTI is just saying this is my starting point. I'm going to start with 0. I is equal to 0. Okay. Then you want to say that as long as I is less than this guy right here. Okay. Keep it running. Okay. All right. And then I guess that we can use length too. LENGTH. Okay. All right. Why is this saying to array? Oh, yeah. If we want to use length, we have to convert this into an array, and that's what's happening. So we'll just use the size because it's just a list, right? List is different than the array. So now that we have this, then we can say I plus plus. So what's going to happen is this is where the breaking point is going to take place. All you're saying if the I'll probably convert this into an array or something. Probably is much easier to deal with. So now if I reaches more than the numbers of links you have, it'll break, right? The loop is not going to go forever. So just keep that in mind, okay? So in this case, the next thing we can do is that we can probably say, let's see, what do we have? We have to actually also use iterators. Okay. Let's see if we can use. Okay. So in this case, like, let's say we want to output the names. I can say this guy. And I'm going to convert this into a link. Okay, let's keep it as list is fine. And then, so obviously this one, and we have to use the index value of it, right? So if we do have the link, let's see. There's more than one way to do this actually. So yeah, so if we do have the, we actually have to go ahead and use get method. So I was confused between the array, because when we do array, we just use the index value directly, right? So in this case, I can say string, right? And URL. So if I want to get the URL, or you know what, let's say link text first. We want to get the link text. And I can say something like this, dot get, okay, and index value is going to be I, right? So we're getting that, and then we're going to say get text. That's it, okay? So now these will give me the ability to go through each link one at a time, okay? Because we're going through the loop to get text of the link. So let's go ahead and output this, right? So I'm going to just go ahead and system.out.println right underneath, so we can start to see those links first. And some of them, keep in mind, it's really up to the developers if they even want to give the link a text. If it doesn't have a link text, it will be empty. So we'll see it if we run it first. All right, so it's printing it and it's going nuts, right? Okay, it's a lot of links, so it's doing it because it's going over. And notice, like, a lot of the empty stuff is because this is still a link. It's just that the developer hiding those links and they didn't put a value, a text value, right? But now that's the ones that they did, the text value, are the ones maybe we want to validate to begin with, right? So then we can use like some sort of if and else to say, you know, if it does have the value, then only then we want to go ahead and do some verification. So in this case, let's say, what if you want to also go ahead and get the URL? Okay, so for each one, we can not only we want to get the name, but we want to get the URL as well. So I'm going to say link URL. Now, if I want to get that, I can say, instead of get text, I can say get attribute, okay? And the attribute inside of it, I'm going to put href. I believe that's how it's spelled. So, well, let's go ahead and take a look. Like, guys, so far, if you guys have any questions, please, that's the only way I can. So it's href, okay? So we want to get this, okay? This is a new method that you are learning. Get attribute will give you whatever you're asking for the value. So now I can print out, I can say link text, and then I can go like something like this. 1 second. Link. Okay, this is link. And then URL gonna be followed by URL is something like that. And then plus the link URL. Okay, so now you're gonna see a little bit different. So what we're saying is that we wanna label them as link, and then we wanna put the URL right under. So let's put a little bit of space. And you know what? Not only space, but we can do something like this, and then so it will kind of look cool, right? So I was going to run it one more time, and this time, you know, let's just keep it here so we can see what's happening. We don't care about the browser. All right, so notice some of them do not even have the text, right? So now you get to see all of the links, right? Obviously, if it's a link, it will have a link URL, so we were able to see them. Some of them do not have text, as you see, no text, right? Some of them have text, right? Now, what if you want to validate each and every single page, and if it opens or not? So far, any question, guys? So notice this is not even a link. It just, sorry, it could be a link, right? It's telephone. So if they click on it, it will just not open a web page, but it'll probably like use their Google phone or something to open up the keypad on the Google phone. Now, because it has the A tag, we were able to pick up this too. Okay. Any questions, guys, up until this much? Any comments? Everything's good? Okay. All right. So, like I said, if this something that gives like some sort of feeling like, oh, this is interesting, then this is the right mindset, because you know you wanna at some point you will be at this level. Okay, so now the next thing, remember, we wanted to validate each and every single page that we're in. So we have two choices. One, we can collect all this and put it into an array and then validate that way, or we are already inside of a loop. So why not just say driver get, get this link URL, right? Right? Don't we want to say that? So let's see what happens, right? Some of them will work, some of them will not work, but this is going to take a while, right? Meaning like it's going to go through each and every single URL. So notice, and it will also fail too, because what's happening, obviously it cannot visit something that is not a URL, right? So what we can probably do, we can put some sort of filter before we say driver.get URL. So we're going to say something like if link URL, right? So I'm gonna put an if and else statement. You guys know how to use that, right? Length is more than, let's say, 5 character. Okay. Only then go visit this URL. How does it make sense to you guys? Because if it's empty, obviously it might not have any characters at all, right? So go ahead and run it one more time. So now again, the solution that we're providing, it is happening based on what we're seeing. So even that didn't work. So it might have more than single character or 5 character, maybe that these are empty spaces. So let's go ahead and see what is the problem. Element is not attached to the page of the document. So this is not a link issue. This is the issue where when you visit the second link, so notice like it visited the second link and is no longer recognizing the previous links, period. Okay, because it's not attached to the page. You guys kind of, this is, even that's not a question to you. You guys understand what does this mean? Still element. This is a occasional error message that you'll be dealing with, and you'll be fixing issues when you face something like this. This is a normal thing. This is a normal kind of errors that we see and we fix them. Okay, so question, or I should just skip this and just fix it. You guys are listening, right? Or is it pretty late?
Listening, yes.
Okay. So yeah, at least say, explain to me, because this is something new. I know that you don't know it. So still element happens, a still reference element happens when, let's say, first of all, we create a list, and this is a web element as a list, right? So it's attached to the page. So it grabbed it from the page and it referencing off of the page, correct? The moment we said driver.get, the first link, this becomes no longer available because it becomes stale, right? This became stale. So now what I will do is, in order for us to be able to not make it stale, re-verify, or at least give it a, sort of like recollect all the link again each time. That's one of the solution, right? That might not be the brightest solution, but that could be another solution where you want to be able to create the same list again, and then basically go ahead and be able to create a list every time when you visit it. So that way it no longer expires. The moment the page refreshes, the element expires. right? It is not attached anymore to the page. And that is the case. So that is one way for you to handle it. So if I go ahead and do all links probably, and let's see, I iterate over all links. No, so that's not gonna work. So I'll just go ahead and create. I'm just gonna call it here, but then it has to be an instance variable. So like maybe we will say something like this, list this all links, and then all links is equal to this guy first. And then once the iteration is done, I want you to go ahead and give me another, right? So notice like we're calling it again. So it will create the all links again and put it back to, put the value back to this variable. So that way it is always there. Okay, so just keep that in mind. So if I run it, I bet you it's gonna run fine now. So these is the type of things that we mitigate and kind of deal with whenever we have issues like this, right? So let's see. Okay, let's see. Link 1, link 2, link 3, link 4, and it's quite fast, right? And as you can see, you try to call that number. Actually, it clicked on that 1-800 number. So it did take quite a while to go through each and every single one. So what's happening is that if something is missing, so let's see how many it went actually. So 1, 2, 3, 253, but it didn't go to every single one of them, right? Because maybe we have this if and else. We probably no longer need that because this was leading cause we had this fix in place because we thought maybe that was the fix, but it was actually the issue with expiring elements, right? So now we should see a little bit longer run basically. And let's see. Okay, let's see. I wonder, that's not total 253. That's not total 253 to me. So let's see. I wonder what's happening. And it's finishing with the error code 0. So it is pretty, you know, second. Yeah, so it is pretty mysterious to me before I can fix it. So what's happening probably, oh, okay, now I know. So every time it goes in there and it grabs a link, and it does it again and again, it just visits the same, it could be the same link, right? Because again, this refreshes and we need to find a way to keep a record of which link we visited last, and we don't want to visit that link. Right now, it's not happening. It's just randomly visiting some link. So it's not going into the all 253. So instead of doing what I just did, I'm gonna go reverse my code, okay? And the one way for us to deal with this issue is that we completely not even use this, let's go ahead and what we can do is that we create an array and we put all the URLs into an array. And so that way we know for fact our link is not gonna be expired, right? Because we need all 253 links, okay? Makes sense or no? What's happening is every time you go through the loop, it refreshes the page because you're visiting a URL, and then this links gets expired, right? All of the rest of the links. So in order to combat that, we will grab the URL and place it and store it somewhere, okay? So if you want to store the links, I can say something like this, right? In order for you to, in order for you to create a variable, and it could be something like this, string. Oh. And let's give it a name, right? All URLs only, right? And is equal to, for now is empty. Let's say this is empty URL. How do I hold on a second to create an empty URL. We got to go to the W3 real quick, create an array. Second guess. So where is my, okay. So let's go to W3 real quick and do a reference check. So in order for us to create an array, let's go ahead and look at the, oh, never mind, we're not even in the right language. Okay. So we're in this one right now, and let's see the Java array. What possibilities we have, right? So we do the string and we have the car, so we can do an instance variable, of course. So I don't want to do this. So all URLs, but notice all URLs is kind of, okay, never mind. It's not the same name, so we good. So all URL is there, and then we can access them by using the index value later, okay? So now my question is basically, how do we even enter a value to the, what's that called? To the array is by doing it this way, okay? So we grab the variable name for your array. We then enter what index number that is, and we can then provide a value, okay? And that's the way we're gonna be doing it. So now that we have this, the next thing we can do is, okay, like right here. Okay, so as soon as it creates, as soon as it grabs the link text, we're gonna say all URL, okay? And let's go back to the reference, you see, all URL, and we're gonna say the index value, which is in this case, I, okay, is equal to link URL. Okay, and then initiate this variable, yes. Okay, so we just go ahead and initiate it with a 0 item when on our list. Okay, so it's gonna probably start, it's basically has nothing to begin with, it's an empty array. Make sense or not? So it will basically create populate this specific array with all the information that we need. So now that we did this, we can now use another loop. So we can actually use while loop. So let's reference off of the while loop right now, since we're already here. So loop through each array. So if you want to loop through, obviously this is a for loop when we did this already. But let's see the how the while loops looks like. I think for each, okay, for each probably better, right? So this is for each. And this is how the for each looks like. So for, and then we have to say type variable. And then so it's going to be, for us, it's going to be string, okay, because we're just saving as a string. And then variable name is going to be singular URL because each one of them, and then the array name is link URL. Sorry, the all URL, okay. And if that is the case, we can say now driver.get, right? And we can say now go to this URL for me, each one at a time. And I bet you this time we will see 256. And let's do a count, right? Let's do a count because how do we know that it actually went 256 times? So maybe I'll do a system.out.println, and then I will do a count, right? So visited page. So we're gonna give everybody a page number, right? So visited page something, right? So this plus the number, or say num. I'll start the num somewhere. Num is equal to 0. It is an int, of course. And then I'm gonna say once this is happening, go ahead and put num plus plus, and we are good to go. Why do we need num plus plus, right, guys? Do you guys remember the incrementations? So if I didn't put num plus plus, what would happen? It would actually go ahead and run it forever, right? It will actually go ahead and never keep record of the number that we're in. Okay, so let's go ahead and run it real quick. And so now it will do 256 times at least, my expectation. Okay, which is not the case. So index 0 out of bound for length of 0. Okay, so this is what's happening. 0 is equal to, okay. So 0 is probably occupied at this point. So let's see why this is the case. So we wasn't able to. So let's go back and reference to the array. Okay. So in our case, we created the array. Where is it? So this is something to do with array, right? So we created the array, and then okay, string array to declare an array. So we did that already. Okay, so that's fine. We'll do an empty array, guys. So the way that I did it is probably the wrong way. So let's go ahead. All right, and this is an empty. In this case, this is an empty array to me. Okay, so it should be good to go. All right, it didn't complain, so we're good to go. Okay. Index out of bound of length of 0. So I'm just gonna quickly Google this because I don't know why this is index out of bound, because that shouldn't be the case actually. So what's happening? Let's see. Initialize variable. I don't want to initialize that. This is a string back. I just want to make sure the data type is correct that we're grabbing. So int, this is an int variable. Okay. Okay, so Java add to a variable. We're trying to add to a variable. Okay, that's fine. Not the variable, sorry, what am I doing? Array. An element to an array. So let's see other sources because sometimes the syntax can be tricky. So int new array, the way that they initialize, this is how they initialize the their array, but this is an int array, right? So we want to int my array. Okay, so I am doing it wrong actually. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna say string, and I will be able to just go ahead and do this actually. So again, syntax matters, right? String URL. Now I can probably initialize, and then we should be at this point we should be good to go. So okay, so no syntax error. Everything else seems to be checking out. So let's see if we get the same message. Okay, index. Okay, and one of the interview question is, what is an exception? Guys, this is an exception, okay? This is a runtime exception right now. And then this is something that you will probably face just like me many times. So let's see what this says. The mission is to do that. Okay, that's fine. We did the similar work. Int new initialize array.length. Oh, okay, that's fine. I think that's the new array is equal to, so this is where the problem is. Okay. Okay, new try this. Okay. Array.length. Where is the array coming from? Okay. So we did that string. I just want to see match the same one. Okay, new string. And this is where the problem. So the 0 is causing the The zero is causing the problem. Okay. And now I have to find where is the red. Yeah. Okay, so index, all links index of, okay. Obviously I am doing something that is not correct here. String array. Okay, so let's see what their solution is. X0 bound. Okay, so this is probably the best place whenever you're dealing with this kind of issues. So as you can see, string input keyboard next line. Okay. Auto println. Okay. Equal to K. No, this is not even the item that we're looking for. Okay. So somehow putting back these, collecting basically the okay. String. Okay. Create a collection of that. Okay. I'm going into this. Okay. Okay. So maybe the best thing we can do is do a quick search, collect string and put it into empty array Java. So notice how I am typing like my question. I don't say, how do I do this and how do I do that? That is something that you will have to work on when it comes about getting help from open source. The way that you type the keyword will give you the right answer that you're looking for. Okay, so array. So again, int. Everybody's working with int. I don't understand why. We're looking for string. Imported as this. Okay. New, and we did the same thing. I just don't understand why the. Okay, so then while I is equal to I plus plus. I plus one. Oh, okay. So maybe what's happening, guys, is that we are trying to enter an item that may not be is basically more than one item, you know, like more than expected item. So let's say okay, so we just have to kind of like put some sort of checks here to make sure we don't go beyond the number. Okay, so then link URL. I'm gonna go ahead and put a breakpoint here. I'm gonna go ahead and put 20 links for now. Okay, so it'll stop at 20. So just want to prove my theory if it works. And if it works, that means we just have to put a check. And it didn't work. Index out of bound for length 0. Out of bound. But didn't we do that? I mean, what's the deal? If we go back in here, let's see. We'll just give it a try here. So you're adding, and I'm gonna go ahead and basically leave this empty. Oops, okay. I'm gonna run it real quick just to see if my problem is related to the way that I created mine. Okay, that's good. Exception. Index out of bound. Okay, perfect. Okay. So now that we see this, right, we're able to replace, and this is happening because obviously a array is not expendable, right? So we may have to create a new list, okay? Because array is not appropriate in our situation, guys. Okay. So if that is the case, we're gonna just go ahead and convert this into a list just like this. And this time, and I should have done it a long time ago, but okay. And here we're gonna say string, okay? And if we do that, and let's give it a name, all URLs, right? And done. Okay, that's all we have to do. And in order for us to fill it up, so all URLs dot I would say get. I think push is probably a push, right? So I believe, okay, all URL dot push. Okay, and then we just gotta push this guy right there. If not push, then it's gotta be, I just don't know the exact method name, initialize variables, all URL, perfect, okay. And then what is the push and rename, okay. So it's not a push, so let's go ahead and find out on a list. So Java list add value, right? So that way we can adding values to a list. Okay, that's fine. Okay. Okay, that's fine. The way is called add item 1, item 2, item 3. So it's the method is called add, guys. Okay, so just remember that. This is your array list, and then we're gonna go ahead and do add. And that's it. Perfect. Okay. So anybody need to know the explanation why it didn't work with array? Remember, array has a fixed length, right? And that's why it happened. That's why it didn't work. Okay, so now it should work. We can even probably put some assertions if we need to. It's just suggesting the code, but go ahead and run it just to make sure that you know. Okay, so now we may have to make appropriate changes based off of the cannot invoke list add because all URL is null to begin with. Okay, so we don't have to say no. Okay, that's good. All URL initialize. We don't want to initialize this. Okay. So we are able to get item. Okay, I'm just trying to push it, I guess. What is the method? Okay, so I'm gonna go and click that and I'll see what methods that we are getting, right? So you see, it does have the add and it has the add method. Okay, we don't want to initialize. Okay, let's see. List string, okay, I'll leave around. We did this already. Start size, okay, start get is fine. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and put an empty. We're gonna have to go ahead and put like empty array. Okay, let's see. So what's happening is that if we initialize with null, it's not gonna be able to add it. So we have to go ahead and say like an empty, I believe, empty string. Okay, this string, okay. New this string, okay. Okay, let me just go ahead and Java list add value string. Okay. Okay, new. Okay, so this is probably the way that we would have to. Yeah, this is the way. Okay, that's what I was thinking. Okay. Okay, so the way that we initialized it, it's the one that we have to change, right? So, oh, where's my IntelliJ? Okay. So we're dealing with two different kind in this case. So go ahead and import this. And now we are good to go. As you can see, there is no issues, right? But then there is okay, and then array. Okay, I see what's happening. And then let's go ahead and add this, I believe. Perfect. Okay. Okay, this is good. And then, okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and run it now. And I'll explain to you guys as soon as it's running fine. It is pretty unusual. As again, like every web application that you're dealing with, you have to come up with solution. The way that pretty much it'll fit the need for that specific application. So notice like all is working, but we had to pretty much go ahead and do it this way at this point. So see, like it went all the way to 19 pages, but that's still not telling us that what happened to the rest of the 256. Right, so maybe we can use the HTTP request for this. That could be one way, but we can, again, like the validation for these links can be also done via just looking at your, you know, looking at the HTTP request code. So we can probably do it the next class. And that's probably a proper way to go. But for some reason, this application is giving me only 19 when it comes about validating, right? Visited only page 19 so far. Okay, so let's go over the code real quick to make sure that everybody understands, and then we will call it a night. So far, any questions on this code? This looks really unusual and different than normally how you would deal with Selenium methods, be able to go and pull a specific element and do something with it, right? This is more to do with Java. Like not only that I had to struggle with like kind of finding ways to deal with, to create and store them into different data structures. So we created a linked list, we created a array list, and then obviously array directly doesn't work because the array has a fixed length. We learned that because it says array out of bound. And so all of these is something that you will be facing at some point because you're trying to solve something. Now, if I was to ask the same question to OpenAI, it would probably give me the best version of the code that you can possibly find, right? And you can actually implement in your what's that called? Automation test, but that's not the point, right? We need to be able to read code, be able to write code, be able to understand code for us to be able to use outside code whenever we want. So in the future, at least my belief, what's going to happen is that we're not going to write a lot of code, right? As a developer, we will probably just do stitching, a lot of stitching, meaning what do we need? We ask the AI to build it for us, and then we take it and then we add it to our app. Because it's been, I would say my exploration of the AI to write code has been pretty amazing. The way that I guess the algorithm works is it goes around and we're gonna probably use that during the interview, guys, because just get an extra help. And it not only that it gives you within like 5 to maybe 20 to 30 seconds. It also explained line by line. So we may end up using that for interviews if we need to. Any helps, right? Anything helps. So just keep that in mind. Any question before we call it a night?
I guess I don't know if I'm putting this correctly, but like, how do we? Is there like a place that we could actually go and like study this, like really understand this concept, like drive this home?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, plenty of open source content out there. So it could be like, so now you know that you are dealing with Selenium and TestNG. So let's say you want to just get more clarifications, so you can go to YouTube. The reason why you want to YouTube sometime is because you get exactly what you need instead of you going through a whole course and then confusing yourself. So let's say test NG and Selenium, like Selenium, Java, for example. So everything that we did is in test NG framework. So not only that it explains, it actually, they'll also give you a little bit more details. But let's say verify all links in a website, Selenium, right? Test NG. And then there will be a video like this guy right here. So maybe he will, this guy's only like just printing it out, right? So that is, we already achieved that right in the very beginning on the first 10 minutes. But at least you can at least work with him to see how he got into the same exact possible results and what was his method and how he wrote it. And similar to that, you have like direct, content that you actually are interested rather than you going into a course, because that's not what we want to do right away. Yes, courses are something that I'm going to ask you guys to do as soon as we are hitting the market, because now you will not be able to focus on the class, right? Then you'll have to do the courses. So that way, at least we're good. The other thing I'll do is that as soon as you get a job offer, we're going to come up with a plan for the first 2 weeks before joining the job. So obviously they give you 2 weeks, and that 2 weeks, what you'll be doing, you'll be finishing at least few courses to make sure that you fit the need. And that means we may end up buying new courses for you, because if a company is looking for a specific skill set and we don't have it, but they said, okay, you can learn, or maybe we just said we know it and then we tried and we got the job, we're gonna still learn it before joining the job. So that way, we don't have to be lost when we join a company. So just keep that in mind. So we will do a lot of courses. For now, I would say the homework, and the only homework that I'll give you guys until Saturday, is that create a piece of code that will grab all the link. Okay, obviously you have example right here from the web page, but make sure you're validating those each pages. Okay, you'll not get a written quiz for that. So at least you guys are basically only like 6 of you guys right now. You'll see that quickly people are like, there are a few people already dropped off because they're not able to keep up with the learning. But that's fine. We're gonna be fine. I think by mid-January to mid-February, you guys should be working somewhere. That's at least my belief, and I think we're heading the right direction as long as you guys are able to take this pressure, because it will be a little bit more pressure upcoming classes like database classes as well as the API classes. So just keep in mind. Any other questions before we finish?
I'm so sorry. So this topic is Selenium and Test NG, correct?
Selenium and TestNG, right? And the next, I guess, like when we are able to at least have ability to write test cases in Selenium and TestNG, we're going to move on to a new framework, and that's the last framework that we'll be learning. So it's not even end of it, right? We didn't even, the next framework where the only thing changes is the look and feel and make it better. Coding skills and Selenium and everything still stays, right? We're just adding additional layers every time we create a new framework. So So the way that we did the first framework was just Selenium and Java. Then we did the Selenium, Java, and JUnit. Then we did Selenium, Java, and TestNG, which is now. And then the next one is going to be Selenium, Java, TestNG, JUnit, and Cucumber. And so it's being added. So none of these items that you learned previously is going to be like, oh, it's completely different. It's not going to be completely different. It's just going to be a new layer that you will have to learn. The class is going to look different, and it may look a little bit better, better than what you see right now, because it'll be more, readable, human readable language that we're going to use in the future classes. So just keep up. I would say try to use also our Udemy classes. So if you are actually interested in doing the courses right now, I think we gave you guys access. If you don't have it, ask for it. If you go to My Learning, you can already start. This is going to be the ultimate framework we're going to learn. This is where you're going to be working. Basically, this is the expertise that you will have. Everything else that we're learning is just to build up the history. You don't just jump right directly to Cucumber without knowing anything else, right? So that's why like JUnit, TestNG, maybe, and all of these we're doing because we have to build up to the point where we can say we know Cucumber and we've been working with Cucumber and so on. So just keep in mind, this is going to be the last framework that we will build. But if you feel like, you know what, I want to do the basics, so this is another one, right? Selenium WebDriver with Java, and many more, right? We're also going to learn API testing. And then you have the basic Cucumber with Java. So I would say if you focus on this one, like this course right here, let me pause it here and then show you the topics. Okay. Everything that we're doing is basically probably here as well. So the first ones, even if you follow this guy for the first 10 selections, you will be more than ready for the outside world, right? But the first 10 selection is probably worth 2 weeks of work that you will be doing. So let's say the question here is, how can I prepare myself? I feel like I want to be running, a little bit faster than usual. So that's totally fine. This is where you start. We did intro to Selenium already. We did the getting the Selenium onto your IDE, and then brush up on Java concept. We did the Java concept. So here you can do it again if you want to. This is 11 hours. Oh, sorry, 1 hours. And then you have core Java in depth for manual testers and beginners. So this is actually targeted somebody who doesn't even know what Java is. So something that you want to look into. And then you have to go into the locators. Locators is basically the way you will interact with objects within the application. We call them elements, right? And we did that a few times. We talked about 7 different locators. So this is where you can now say, okay, you know what? Aside from what I learned, I want to learn, probably this from a different perspective. So this could be one, right? And this is purely content, meaning they're not talking about stories. They're not extending the length of the class. So if you do happen to join this, this 1 hour and 17 minutes is going to be only for locators, and they will break it down to the level where you may be able to understand better. So just keep that in mind. And then you have your first framework, right? They help you build. After that, they teach you functions and testing. They teach you synchronizing and all of this. But if you can actually go up to, even if you go up to locators, like by the next class, I promise you, anything that I talk about in the class, you're gonna know instantly. You're gonna basically also enjoy the class as well. Okay. The reason some of you guys are a little bit struggling on understanding is because one is that you're not spending a lot of time, and number two is that practice, right? You're not practicing, because when you do practice, you will make mistakes, and therefore you'll have to know how to fix that mistakes. And this will give you the ability to say, okay, you know what? Now I know the next time I see this, that means this, right? So the fact that you guys didn't know what the .get method for driver is, that just tells me that's lack of practice, right? Because otherwise you would know right away. You know, and again, correct me if I'm wrong. So, like I said, if you are interested and said, okay, you know what, I'm gonna spend my weekend, or at least I'm gonna spend my Friday over this, I would say at least, you know, finish up to 5. That is 1 hour, 2 hour, 3 hours. So really like under 4 hours, you will be up to speed with Selenium and Java, and you're gonna be exactly where you should be. Okay, so if you did miss anything, and again, this is for all of you guys. If you don't have access, again, just text me. I'll give you the access to this specific course. Um, and um, and again, my recommendation: go ahead and do this if you feel like you need that. And some of you guys, one thing that I'll tell you guys, and this is something that I tell after we pass to the point where we're very close to finish the course, is that ready or not, I will place you guys out there for a job. Meaning, if you, whether you learn maybe 80% to 50% or 20%, because there is a place for everybody, right? And there is a place for everybody, meaning if you didn't learn coding, then yes, you can go for more, you know, as an analyst. If you know coding, then you can go as an engineer. So there is a place for everybody. If you didn't learn coding at all, but let's say Agile Scrum and the team structure, and you're really a people person, then there is a place for you as well. You can be a project coordinator. So there is a position for everyone. Just keep in mind. But our goal is to find a QA engineering job, not analyst and not the coordinator. But if that comes down to because you weren't able to put enough time, then that's where we're gonna be. But everybody will, at the end of the day, go ahead and go out there and look for jobs, and we're gonna help, and you will get a job as long as you keep up with the same speed, right? And there will be a lot of instruction and a lot of self I would say keeping up, right? Your social media, your LinkedIn and things like that, those needs to be handled properly in order for you to land on the right job. So we'll also give you guys guidance on those. But most importantly, I would say practice, because I don't see the evidence of you guys doing a lot of practice on the Selenium, because the last 3 classes were like purely writing code and purely writing test cases. And yeah, I don't think you guys did a lot of practice on creating test cases on your own. So do that. But again, this might be one way for you to be up to speed with right now, right? So what's happening now, you'll be able to get up to speed if you just finish chapter 5, and you'll be able to pick up right from where I am. The other thing that you will see is that here, not only that, but this is one of the course some of our students use, like for example, line number section 38, where it says cucumber behavior driven framework. So let's say their managers ask them create a framework and give me a demo. You can actually go ahead and download the framework from here, because this guy already did it. The other thing is that if you go from the beginning of the video, you will know how he created this. Now you have a source code here where you can actually download the framework, and then you can actually tailor to your needs, meaning you can change things that you need based off of your project, and you can customize because you already know how he did it, right? This is part of the course. So some of the students in the past, they were able to get a lot of help from this specific course, because it has absolutely everything. And this guy, the person, content creator, he is always keeping up to speed with the latest technology. So anything that is here, what he does, he replaces a video if it no longer relevant to the real world, right? Which is one of the other reason I think this course is probably highly sold among the testing community. So just keep in mind, and I will share. So whoever gonna message me, I'm gonna share the Udemy access. Okay, just keep that in mind. All right, I'll see you guys on Saturday. Now I think holidays are coming, right? So we're gonna have to think about some of the. I'm gonna talk to Shantabai and see for us to take days off when there's holiday. I don't want to bother anybody during holidays. You want to enjoy, you don't want to think about the class. That's totally fine. So I'm gonna have to look at the calendar and see which days this falls under, but you can still do self-study by going into the course in Udemy, guys. Okay, I'm gonna share it in the group. Or no, you know what? I'll just share it privately. It's better. I just don't want to put it out there for anyone who might not be part of the class. So.
Well, hi, this is Atoy. I have a question. So, when is the next batch you gonna start? Because in this batch, I'm like kind of lost.
Lost. Yeah,
Yes.
that's totally fine. Just
Yeah.
right now, just hover over since you have the time,
Okay.
and this is just gonna prepare you for what's coming. Maybe like on your badge, so you'll have some extra knowledge.
Okay.
And you don't have to do the homework, right? Because again, I don't expect you to all of a sudden start to do
Yeah.
homework. Yeah.
Right. So
So
when is that? You said January?
January 15 to yeah, so we're gonna shoot
Okay.
basically for January 15 as of right now. We have
Okay.
few other candidates that are waiting for that batch, but January 15 is right now, at least I can see the date. Yeah, January
Okay.
15.
So should I start from there, like, or now I have to join the class, or it would be okay not to join the class?
Yeah, it's really up to you. I mean,
Okay.
if you join these classes, at some
Mhm.
point you'll start to pick up things.
Okay.
But if you feel like no, I don't want to, join because this is really, it's gonna
Yeah.
confuse me and stuff, then you can
Mhm.
probably join on the 15th. This is not too far away from now.
Okay.
So
Yeah, I got it. Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
you're welcome.
Does
All right,
that mean that
guys.
we're finishing? I'm sorry. Does
Mhm.
that mean that
Yeah.
we're finishing January 15th?
We may not be finishing on January 15th, so we're gonna continue. We're gonna run to. We're gonna start with one, and then, you guys have instructor, a second instructor, Shantabai, who has his own courses that he needs to do. So he might do those while I take care of the new badge. The new courses. So basically, his side of the expertise is database. So he's gonna be teaching you guys database and possibly API as soon as we're ready with the Selenium.
How long does that go for? I'm sorry, just scheduling.
That could be, well, from the past classes, it's like I think about 4 classes for the database and then 2 classes for the API. So it could be like within a month, it's going to be done. So it might be, you guys might be able to finish again, like I said, we need to take some time off in between. So let's see when, but some of you guys, like I said, I named 3 of you guys that is going to be hitting the market early. That means we have to prepare you. So you will probably get additional classes on the preparation, job preparation. And we'll talk about that when we get to that. All right. So like I said, if you guys have any question and you want to talk to me, just shoot me a quick question. I'll answer it. Again, like our intention is to finish by January 15 if we can. I don't think it's gonna happen, right? Because we have to take some time off for the holidays. So it will drag to the next 3 to 4 weeks after that. But some of you guys will hit the market maybe mid-January because we have some in-house positions that we want to try, right? So if we do try the in-house position, one good thing is you don't have to guess the questions, right? We will prepare you ahead of time with the questions. We'll give you the questions ahead of time to make sure that you are able to answer properly before the interview. So there's not going to be a lot of effort from your side to be able to pass that interview, and it'll be slightly technical, but it'll be basic technical. They're not going to ask you to write 2 pages of code. They will ask you what is variables and things like that. More on the basic side. So we'll talk about that when it gets to that point. But for today, we'll end it now. And if you guys have any questions, just reach out to me privately.
Thank you very much. Have a good night.
You're welcome. All right. Good night, guys.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.